Mr. Mayor, I was about to say the same thing to you, except I wasn't gonna call you Sean, though. So it's 4:03, so my apologies for being 3 minutes late. We'll call the meeting to order. And I will start by saying the City of London is committed to making every effort to provide alternate formats and communication supports for council, standing, or advisory committee meetings and information upon request. To make a request for any city service, please contact accessibility@london.ca or 519-661-2489, extension 2425. So I did call the meeting to order, and I'm expecting some order over there, and looking for disclosures of pecuniary interest. I'm not seeing any. So we'll move to the consent items. Are there any items that members would like pulled? Councillor Sully?
Just had, you can just pull 2.6, just had a question there.
Okay, so I'll look for a motion on the remainder of the consent items, moved by the mayor and seconded by Councillor Lewis. Any discussion or debate on the items minus 2.6? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote on the consent items 2.1 through to 2.5 and 2.7 and 2.8. And we'll call the vote.
I'll vote manually yay.
So the mayor and Councillor Sully are voted manually, and both have indicated that they are voting yes.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 6-0.
That brings us to item 2.6, which is the London Arts Council agreement for the term 2019 to 2023. Councillor Sully.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I could have probably did it for 2.6 and 2.7, but there's no direction I'm looking for, but I just had a question. I know we have the multi-year budget and those pieces. I just wanted to make sure that things will align accordingly and if there's any issues with that. So I see like 3 heads nodding, so it seems like there's a lot of people with great answers, so go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Stafford.
Yes, thanks for that question through the chair. We have looked, the agreement was in place and expiring, and we looked at that situation, certainly with the multi-year budget coming. It is part of the base budget, so it's not a new ask as we go forward. And because of all of the different associations and relationships for both organizations, it's important to keep a multi-year agreement rather than an annual agreement. But what we have done is take this agreement to move forward into the next 4-year, the next multi-year budget after this, so that it's a fresh start in the system there. So this is a way to carry on, move forward with previous agreements, get us to a place where we need to be. And again, it is part of the base budget. It's not a new ask, so.
And just as a follow-up through you, Chair, so I guess when we get to doing our multi-year budget, 2020 to 2023, right? So that will all align up then. Is that the hope, I guess? I just wanted, so what will I see when we come back in multi-year budget time? Will they all just match up, the stars align and everything will run smooth, or should we anticipate any issues, or will we need to rescind an agreement to be able to reflect that? Just wanted to kind of just have that background.
So this will set the agreement in place. It will be part of the base budget in the Culture Office for that 20 to 23, so it will be presented as part of the base budget at that time. Then as we go forward and renewing a new agreement, it will be into the following multi-year budget that we'll be able to have more debate around it at that time.
That's all I had. Thanks. Just wanted.
Thank you. Any other members? No? So I see Ms. Hibbert is here in the house, and I see Ms. Harvey as well, so welcome. And I just want to comment on the situation in general in London and the great work that both organizations that are here before us have done to promote the arts in London, and especially London Arts Council, how they leverage a small amount of funding, really, that they get from the city, how they're able to spread it across the city, and especially target with a lot of different programs, young people and youth in the city. I think both organizations doing a great job. London Arts Council doing a fabulous job with the little bit of funding that you get from the city. So thank you both for coming. And with that, I will call the vote. And we need to move around to seconder. Councillor Pelosa is moving the motion, and Councillor Hillier is seconding.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 6-0.
Great, so we'll move to, there are no scheduled items. We'll move to items for direction, and the first one is item 4.1, request for dedication of Fire Station Number 4, 870 Colburn Street, in memory of Deputy Chief W.P. Harding. I see we have Mr. Warden and Mr. Pearson here with us. I wonder, Mr. Mayor, if you would like to speak first. I understand Mr. Pearson may be speaking to us.
I'm pleased to have the delegation speak first, and then I would certainly like to add some comments as well, Madam Chair.
You're good? Okay, Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. We're delighted to have here today with us Glenn Pearson, who in so many ways doesn't need a great introduction, co-chair of the London Food Bank, and I will let folks know that past Deputy Fire Chief Peter Harding was chair of the London Food Bank for many, many years. And we have here as well Randy Warden from the CEO of St. John Ambulance, London and Region, and in the gallery, because he was too shy to come down, Don Denny, who is also he's responsible for honors and awards for St. John Ambulance and has a great history from a military standpoint in our city. That's all by way of a little background for our guests. From my standpoint, I've had the honor to know Peter Harding for many, many years. He was in so many ways a mentor to me. If you knew him well, he could also be a little bit of a tormentor, because he was one of those folks that had exacting standards and wasn't shy to tell you when you were a little bit offside. My conflict, which is not at all, is that I was chair of the board of St. John Ambulance, London and Region, and also currently am patron of St. John Ambulance, and proud to have that role. And in addition to that, I have co-chaired for a number of years the Business Cares Food Drive, responsible for for a significant contribution from employers and employees across the city, again, of which Peter Harding was the chair. Peter died, and his death has been related to his work, and that's one of the conditions if one is going to request and support a dedication of a fire hall. Number 4, because number 4 was certainly Peter's fire hall. He was a Knight of the Order of St. John, and one of the most incredible Londoners I've had the privilege to know. And his passing broke all of our hearts. Glenn Pearson and Randy Warden did the eulogies for Peter at the request of his family. And I can't think of a more appropriate honor than for this council to approve the dedication of Fire Station Number 4. I'd like to note that Fire Chief Laurie Hamer is here as well, and she wouldn't be here without speaking to her about this, but unless she was also in strong support of Deputy Chief Harding's acknowledgement as we consider dedicating Fire Station 4. There's just very few more words without getting very emotional about what he has meant to this city. And all I would say is that if this city had just even a few more Peter Hardings in this world, it would be that much of a greater London than it already is. So I'm absolutely encouraging colleagues to support the dedication of Fire Station Number 4 in memory of Deputy Chief Peter Harding.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. My apologies, Chief Hammer, I did not see you there, so welcome as well to the committee. Any committee members wish to comment? Councillor Sully?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mayor, for those words. I think it's valuable to, just for members of the public who are following this, I know I had an opportunity to read the report that was written by our great staff here, and it really highlights kind of the policy around the dedication of fire stations. And I just want to think, I think it'd be helpful for those watching if they could hear a little bit about that, as well as a little appreciation of what our Municipal Addressing Advisory Group does in relation to this, because I think it's helpful for the community to kind of have that synopsis of what I have to appreciate, recognizing that there was many letters of support from many organizations as well with this.
Ms. Livingston?
Through you, Madam Chair, the purpose of our report was just to facilitate committee's review of the requests from the community. And in the report, we highlight the policy around dedication of fire stations, which essentially indicates, and it's a council policy, and it was reaffirmed last year, so I just want to remind perhaps new council members of that, that dedication of fire stations applies to 7 existing stations, 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, and 11, as well as any new stations constructed in the future, and that the dedication is in the memory of fallen firefighters who have lost their lives in the line of duty. And that's an important component of the policy. Whenever we are asked to then pursue the dedication, we always just want to make sure that with the naming of a building, we don't confuse it with the naming of a street or something like that, which is the Municipal Addressing Advisory Group's job. So it's merely just checking that we don't confuse our first responders with that. We don't anticipate this being an issue, but it's a step that we have to follow.
Thank you. Anybody else? No. I imagine that motion to rename Fire Station Number 4 after former Deputy Chief Peter Harding is being moved by the Mayor and seconded by Councillor Lewis. No further comments or questions. I will call a vote.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 6-0.
Thank you again to our guests for coming. So we can move on to item number 4.2, which is the second report of the Community Safety and Crime Prevention Advisory Committee report. What I want to point out to committee is that on the committee report, the advisory committee report, there, under the scheduled items is item 2.1, and it contains some direction in there, which is a municipal council be requested to adopt the recommendations in the Middlesex London Community Drug and Alcohol Strategy. So I just always call the attention of action items from advisory committee reports to the committee. If we simply pass this, it could be interpreted 2 ways. One, that we are simply acknowledging that they are making a request, but we're not bound by the request, or it could also be interpreted as our endorsing the request. So it's completely up to committee how you want to proceed with this. Councillor Sully.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I'm happy with heading in the direction of our advisory committee, which was to adopt the recommendations, but subject to if there's any comments from staff, perhaps, if there's any concerns or issues.
I wonder if staff would like to comment. Mr. Katolik.
I believe the focus of this is retrieval of needles during the informed response project, which is now going citywide. It's going to start in April. So we do have protocol in place for retrieval of needles, and we work very closely with the health unit in that regard.
So it sounds like it's something we're already doing. Anybody else? You're good, Councillor Sully?
Well, I was just going to say, Madam Chair, because we were looking for some direction, I could move that, seeing that I guess staff are kind of doing the work already. It's just kind of just affirming it from the council's perspective is kind of how I took it.
So Councillor Sully, we can move the entire advisory committee report. There's also another action item in there that I'm not sure if it would cause concern. It doesn't cause me too much concern. It's number 4.1, that the advisory committee be allowed to prepare letters, and it lists a number of people there. They have to request that through us because the advisory committee goes through the standing committee, and and you're okay with that too. So Councillor Sully is moving the entire advisory committee report, and Councillor Hillier is seconding that. Any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor.
Just as a clarification, so we're just receiving the report? Is that what we were saying now? Or I just want to clarify, because I think you started off with the preamble that we had to give a direction, so.
It's an item in their report that can be interpreted as direction or not. All right, I will call the question.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 6-0.
Right? Item 4.3 is the third report of the Animal Welfare Advisory Committee. I'll look for a mover on that to receive the report. Councillor Sully, and I need a second. Councillor Pelosa. Any questions or comments on that report? I'll call the question.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 6-0.
Okay, and the final, I'll just point out that there's an extra page in the added agenda. It's just it's just correcting a typo at the very top of the page. In our original agenda, it said page 2 of 3, but it was only page 2 of 2. It's a minor correction, not a big deal. We have the deferred matters list. Does anybody have any questions or comments on that? Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a very quick question through you to Mr. Katolik with regard to item 9, the towing services review. We don't have an expected reply date yet, but I'm wondering if you could just provide a very quick maybe update in terms of has any discussion started with the agencies that we indicated, or is there perhaps a very ballpark timeline that we might expect something back? I'm not looking for anything that's going to marry you to a specific date today, Mr. Katolik. Just wondering if there's any updates.
Through the chair, discussions have started with the industry and police services, and a report would be coming back in Q3 of this year.
Any other questions on deferred matters? I'll need a mover to receive that. Councillor Lewis, seconded by Councillor Hillier, and we can vote on that.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 6-0.
Looking to anybody other than Councillor Sully to move adjournment?
I can settle in.
I do need a mover. Councillor Sully, seconded by Councillor Pelosa. We can do it manually. All in favor? Any opposed? I see none. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. We are adjourned.